Dear friends, today is the Thursday of the mysteries, and it's mainly we call it the mysteries because not just one single mystery, one sacrament was instituted, but mainly many, especially Eucharist and Holy Orders. And I think in your behalf first, I'd like to say best wishes and thanks to Abuna Milad and Abuna Edward for their ministry, devotion, dedication. Thank you, fathers, for your service as well. We've been talking, as I said, about Eucharistic revival. And today I'd like to talk about Eucharist as a banquet. Many first complained to me, Father, Bishop, why do I have to go every Sunday to church? You know, I don't have to go all the time. You know, once whenever I feel. I ask them sometimes, I tell them, how many meals do you eat every day? How long can you go without eating? I said, oh, I have to eat, you know, I need to keep going. In the same way, I come to church, to Mass, to get my spiritual nourishment. Otherwise, I cannot keep going as well. From that perspective, the liturgy, the Mass, the divine, is our spiritual nourishment that we needed to keep going as well. This is first, keep it in your mind. And I don't know how much you could go without eating food. You know, few people, when they go on hunger strike, as they call it, and they, at the end they collapse. Similarly, as spiritual, as a Christian, as Catholics, as Orthodox, whatever you want, if we don't receive the real Christ in his own body and blood, we'll also collapse spiritually. We need him to nourish us and help us to grow in our spiritual journey as well. What this came about? Why this? Why do we do it as a banquet? Often you see the most famous Last Supper, I see it at different homes, but we call it, you know, Da Vinci painting. And it's interesting, you notice, always you see it all in like one side, long side, and this always open. You know why? Because it's an invitation for each one to be part of that supper as well, and that dinner. Yes, there were 12 apostles that night, but also was extended an invitation to every believer to participate down the line in that banquet as well. And you see another famous painting as well. They call it the Trinity, having, you know, the Rublev painting. And also the tree, and open, is always open from one side. One side is filled, and the other side, an open invitation for all of us to join. Let's go back to the Last Supper. Why Jesus had the Last Supper? He did not create the Last Supper. The Passover supper was done before, and it was celebrated part of the Jewish tradition. And mainly, they have the Passover celebration to recall their exodus out of Egypt, their liberation from the Egyptians, from the slavery. They were slaves to the Egyptians. And on the 10th plague, if you go to the book of Exodus and read it, in the 10th plague, after, you know, Moses and Aaron would go and tell Pharaoh, let us go. We want to, the Lord has asked us to go to our promised land. He would always resist. At first he would say yes, he would always resist. Finally, in the 10th plague, God will tell Moses and Aaron, tell the people, tell the Israelites, to make sure on their doorpost, the blood of the lamb would be, you know, they poured out the blood of lamb. There would be like a painting of, you know, spots of the blood, so that the angel of death, when they come, those homes will be passed over. That's the reason, passed over. The angel of death will pass over, and the firstborn son won't die. And all the other Egyptians, the firstborn son died. And that's the reason. And he told them after that, every time you should commemorate that, and not just commemorate it as only in the past, you should say and relive the liberation, the freedom that God has given us, the salvation to be out of Egypt as well. And they had different things as well. They would have what we call it the Seder, and every week, the ritual meal that marks the different rituals of the thing. They had first the bitter herbs. Why the bitter herbs? Because to remind them of the bitterness when they were under the Egyptian. Life was bitter. The slavery is bitter. And we need to be free to feel the sweetness of the Lord as well. They will eat little bit bitter herbs to remember of that as well. They'll have the manna coming from, the Lord who was feeding them for 40 years in the desert. But also unleavened bread, because that is the most simple bread. Also, there is in some way symbolic. You should never be corrupted from the Egyptian time. You should always be in you as well. And they had the lamb, the sacrificial lamb, to commemorate what, as I said earlier, the blood of the lamb poured out upon the first thing. And they had the wine. And they have what's called the cups of wine. And in this wine, they had the cup of sanctification, the cup of deliverance, the cup of redemption, and the cup of what we call restoration. And this, they won't drink, they will put it down. All these things was part of the Passover meal. When Christ decided to do it, he told his apostles, let's have this. But he was going to give it a new meaning. There is no more need for all those things as well. There will be totally different celebration from that point. And it's now anticipation for next and next and next life as well. And he would say it's, I will eat this meal again in the heavenly banquet, in the kingdom of heaven, where you and I will come together as one. This is from Old Testament, part and celebration. In the New Testament, Christ multiplied different times also the bread and fishes and fed so many thousands of people. To tell us, was always caring for people. And he compared in his teaching always the kingdom of heaven like a banquet, a celebration. Because the kingdom of heaven is not sadness, it's not sorrow, it's not mourning and weeping and wailing. It's the opposite, it's joy and peace and all over, celebration. That's what God wants us, to celebrate, to rejoice always. And every time we come to Mass, yes, we come sad as we come in because we have our own worries, our own difficulties. But I hope once we leave, we are uplifted, we are nourished and nurtured by the body and the blood of Christ, who gives us special grace and special way to go and move forward again to encounter all the people we meet during our own life as well. And why he washed the feet. The feet was part, if you want to sit at the banquet, at the celebration, usually there were slaves to wash the feet, so that people will rejoice. There won't be anything there won't be anything discomfort for them. There will be rejoicing. And Christ was also symbolically, as he washed their feet, he wanted to tell them, you have to be clean, so that whenever your celebration of the Eucharist, you're also clean as well. Became spiritual cleansing as well. As he washed their feet, he was also thinking, if everyone would be urged to be in the state of grace, to really receive the body and the blood of Christ. And that's the reason we do the washing of the feet. And it also became the humiliation. In order to receive the body and blood of Christ, I'm not worthy to receive it. None of us is worthy. Whatever we do, we're not worthy to receive Christ himself. We don't deserve it. And I have to tell you also, the Jews did not deserve it as well during that time, to be saved from the Egyptians. They were not the best, and they were not the only one. But God, by his own mercy and grace, he granted them this. And he does the same for us. By his own mercy and love for us, he grants us those graces, so that you and I will be able to benefit, celebrate, rejoice, and really move on in our own life as well. This is a banquet. And Balthazar, the theologian, famous Balthazar, he talked about the washing of the feet, the Eucharistic institution, and also the death on the cross as three dimensions of the love of the Eucharist as well. The Eucharist, in some ways, he calls it, love is to be the servant of all. That's why you wash the feet. And love in the body, Christ gave his body and the blood because he wants to be the nourishment for all. And God gave us his life, the sacrifice to redeem all of us as well. From that perspective, you and I are called to that celebration as well. What is the proper etiquette? Whenever you go to banquet or nice, they have etiquette, what they call table etiquette. What is the proper etiquette to come to church as well? I will tell you three things. Reconciliation with God and with others, because we need to remember, if you're coming to make an offering and remember you have some on the altar and you remember you have something against your brother, leave it on the altar, go reconcile first, and after that, come back and celebrate and make an offering. That's what God said. It's not me. I'm not creating this. I'm just reminding you. And how many of us here right now, I'm sure they have something against each other. I'm sure there will be some, if I'm not going to say everybody. There is a story about an old lady one time. She was like 108 years old. And the priest was talking, you should reconcile. I'm sure there is somebody who's upset. And he saw that lady smiling and laughing. He said, what do you mean? You're 108. I'm sure you had. He said, look, I got rid of all of them. They all died. I'm the only one left. I'm the only one left. That's the way. But in some ways, whenever I refuse to reconcile, because I am the only one left and I'm the only one holy to be part of that. That's not the way the Lord is asking us. The second thing, I need to prepare myself. Often we come to Mass, the last minute we're rushing, and sometimes in Arabic we say, "Inkisr sammu bishum akhar al qadis." I come little late because I am so busy doing different things. I need to really live the liturgy, the Mass from beginning to end. Prepare myself for that celebration. When you go to dinner at somebody's house, you make sure you have the proper clothes, the proper gift, and you name it. How about coming to church? What is our preparation? Spiritual preparation. And the third thing, participation. We're not here watching a play, a concert. We're here to participate in the banquet of heaven, the banquet of really Christ coming into my own life, into my own heart, into my own spirit as well. This is what we call it the etiquette for the meal. Now, what's the fruit of the meal as well? I get something, I'm satisfied, I get what we call peace and serenity. And trust me, money at the end sometimes doesn't give me it gives me maybe temporary happiness and things. But know what will give the serenity, the inner peace? Only God is a gift from God. Trust me. Unless you experience that personal inner satisfaction, the God satisfaction, you need to have that presence of God in your heart. And also it gives us another fruit. You start feeling, it tastes what's coming up next. Usually we have the dessert, the best thing in the dinner at the end. The sweetest thing in our banquet will be one day in heaven. And this is just a taste of the eternal happiness as well. Little taste, temporary taste, will be permanent whenever we are in the presence of the Lord finally. And this is another fruit. We become what we call provision on the road to eternity. Zuwedi in Arabic. I used to say, anybody goes to work, they used to take something with them on the road. Eucharist is our provision on the road to eternity as well. And finally, fruit of the body of Christ in my life and become a part and a member of the body of Christ as well. All of us are part of the body of the church as well. This is the way Eucharist as a banquet. And that's why our altars are always open to tell us you're part of that celebration of that banquet. And let us make sure you and I benefit as much as possible from this special grace that we don't deserve. But God is so gracious, so loving, that He expressed His love by coming Himself, sharing Himself with every one of us. He's sharing Himself, giving Himself, knocking at the door of our heart. Tell us, please open for me. I want to come and break bread with you. I want to come into your heart. And trust me, I know your heart more than you do know me as well. This is the Eucharist as a banquet. And I hope from now on, whenever we come to church to participate in the divine liturgy, to really live that Eucharistic celebration as a banquet, all of us celebrating, rejoicing, not just 10 people at the home, the whole church. And as big as we come, as numerous as we come, the church is big, and God is bigger to receive all of us and tell us, you're welcome into my kingdom. You're welcome to my banquet.